Start us off, Carter.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Halftime Squeak, starring your host, the Rat King, living under the tunnels between Madison Square Garden and the Barclays Center, here to talk all things NBA. Today, we got a lot to talk about. We have the Damian Lillard trade. He did not get his dream destination, the Miami Heat, but he is, in fact, joining the Greek freak himself in dear country Milwaukee. But actually, this is Cast Pod. Carter and Kevin talk football. This is
Yep.
one of your hosts, Carter.
I'm Kevin, and I was
Eh,
expecting just a a normal intro at first, and then you took it. You took it and ran.
Oh, oh yes. I realize I'm the only one in my friend circle who particularly watches basketball, and I realized as identifying as the Rat King, one of everyone's favorite New York centric mythical cryptid slash demigod. I realized, oh, that's also that'd be a really good name for a New York Knicks basketball podcast.
Yeah, I can believe it.
Except I hate the Knicks, so what can you do? But anyway, we are here to talk football today.
Hoorah!
Week 3 is in the books. Week 4 is already coming down the pike. It is insane how quickly, how
It's been
fast the
going.
machine starts turning. Yeah, we're already almost a quarter of the way through the season. It is insane once the momentum starts. It just does not stop.
Yeah, can't stop, won't stop. It's kind of crazy. It's also kind of crazy that this is actually the fourth consistent week that we've done this.
Oh yeah. Look, when I commit to a schedule, I commit. I'm just not the best at making the schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is interesting because we're finally getting out of September, and my adage with football is don't trust as little as you see in September as possible. If it confirms reasonable suspicions you had going into the year, it's probably okay. If it is completely out of whack with what you were expecting, unless there's like a lot of evidence to back it up, don't overreact. And I think our first highlight is the best example of that.
Ah, Chiefs are looking good again.
Yes. The Kansas City Chiefs beat the Chicago Bears. Kind of
What
just
a
put them in a wood chipper, I'm going to be honest.
uh, what an interest! Like that game has so much going on that wasn't related, like that wasn't exclusively related to just play-by-play stuff. And we'll talk about
Right.
some of it later. We're just talking about the Chiefs getting their mojo back. 41
Yes.
to 10 or 41 to 0 by the end of the third quarter.
By the time everyone of note had been taken out of the game,
Yes.
at least on the Chiefs side,
On
I did not realize Chad or Blaine Gabbert was in this game as long as he was, to be honest,
Yeah,
because honestly, basically the minute the Chiefs scored their first touchdown and then their second touchdown almost right after,
it was game
um,
over.
yeah, they kind of just stopped talking about the actual football being played. I think there was a
Yep.
brief moment going into the game. There was a sense of like maybe this is where the Bears like wake up a little bit. Maybe this is where they turn it around. And in
Hibernation's
reality,
over. We're getting up and we're gonna get in the trenches. None in the slightest.
see, if we might as well just kind of talk about the Bears here too. But see, if there was any life in this franchise, that is how they'd be spinning it. That's what the coach would be saying in like marketing and like press stuff.
Yeah.
He'd be like, "The hibernation's over, baby." Instead, they just died again.
Yep.
Like, and this is what I mean by like proof concept, because there was a lot of apprehension going into the season of like, okay, the Chiefs have kind of overhauled the receiving room again. They didn't really add anyone. Like when they got rid of Tyreek Hill, they added people. They added Marquez Valdes Scantling. I can never say it right. They added
Neither can I.
they added Juju Smith-Schuster, and then a bunch of guys that went out the door, and no one really came in. But we were like, well, as long as they have Travis Kelsey, they'll be fine. And then like the
Yeah.
first 2 weeks, it's like, well, one, Travis Kelsey got hurt, and then it's like, well, they're not looking so fine. And now everything's regressed back to the mean. It's like, right, Patrick Mahomes is such a floor raiser that as long as you have one good receiver and a bunch of okay guys, you'll be fine.
Oh yeah. No. The facts about this game, like one of the most baffling to me. This was like the America's game, like the non. If you're not in a specific region for a team that's about to play, or even kind of a division, this is the game you're gonna be given, and
Mhm.
they took it off at halftime.
Yes, that is how little there was to say or of notes. It also in counterpoint, I would like to say that like the Chiefs, I'd like to stay on my bear stock and be like, what I thought going into the season was right, but it has been such a spectacular disaster. It's hard. Like that's what I mean. Unless something is so extreme and so obvious, like there's so much to back it up, and it's like, oh, you look over this team and it's like, okay, they didn't bring anyone in to coach up Justin Fields, and now he looks like he's overthinking everything. Their offensive line is still a turnstile.
Yeah,
Their defense didn't really meaningfully improve, and you're like, okay, I was ignoring a lot of the very obvious signs going into this year and focusing on the positives. It's funny. I mentioned the FBI raid thing, and it turns out they haven't confirmed that. And here's the thing: there's a reason why that rumor got spread like wildfire on one because Twitter is a cesspool right now,
yeah,
but also it's like this has been such a profound, sort of shocking disaster where no one seems capable of even doing the bare minimum of their job. That it's like
yeah.
much like I don't know, like I hate to bring this guy up, but when Bryan Singer was on the set of some of his later movies, particularly Bohemian Rhapsody, like people were just like, yeah, he was like really erratic and freaking out, and he just went AWOL sometimes. And then like a report came out about his like horrific criminal behavior, and it's like that is why the FBI rumor spread, because the only way you can make sense in your head how these people just seem so unable to function at their job is that they are waiting for the feds to kick down their door, and they're trying to decide if they lawyer up or flee the country. You know how bad
Yeah,
it was?
yeah.
Like, it's bad when your quarterback can't even get garbage time points. Guess how many yards Justin Fields had by the end of the game?
For passing,
Passing. Yeah, just passing.
shot in the dark, 99 because I'm looking at the same stat.
Yes. Like, if you
Yeah,
can't even get garbage time points, even the Broncos got 20 points.
yeah. Bronco
It,
like
like,
Broncos got smoked, but
and they look better than this.
they still would have beaten a decent amount, like in the theoretical atmosphere of if you switch some of the teams around and they all scored the same exact points as they previously did, the Broncos would have still won a decent amount of games.
20 points is enough to win a football game.
Yeah.
10 is not. Like, it is wild. This was a banner, and we'll talk about the other two teams, but this was a banner week for sort of teams we knew felt were good going into the season, just absolutely murking people,
This is
just simply folding them like laundry.
it's the exact opposite of last week. Like last week
Right.
we talked about it a little bit. There was like 2 3 games, maybe 4 tops, that it wasn't like a 1 point game. This was
Mhm.
smoked out, like real close game. Completely just shit on, real close game. And just pretty much the entire league this last weekend. You're either within a reasonable amount of range or not close.
Mhm. Um, our second highlight is the Houston Texans,
Hey,
scrappy as all get out. Like, it's not just. I'm trying not to again, you don't want to commit too hard to any take in September,
yes.
but like, I'm looking at it and I'm just looking at kind of like how the AFC is like sort of
A
pacing
weird
itself right
entity.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like, okay, obviously the top is very clear, but the middle is murky. And I'm like,
Yeah.
shoot, could they possibly just maybe get that seventh wild card spot?
If
And I'm like, I know that's dumb. I know they could lose 4 straight games and be like, yes. But right now, that doesn't seem like as insane a take as you'd think.
yeah, no, this is why I said I believe was the yeah, it was the question of the week for week 1 where we are talking about beginner's luck versus skill. And I've said you got to wait till at least week 3 before you start making these judgments
Mm.
because, people are getting back off on the horse and stuff like that, and pretty great showing from the Texans. They might have finally gotten their lives together.
Yeah, and again, it's like they still like they're missing a bunch of offensive linemen. They're like missing a lot. Like they're missing some skill position players,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same, they're just producing. C.J. Stroud, I'm like, again, poor Kenny Mack because this guy just is the epitome of competency right now. He
Yes.
looks completely locked in. He looks completely poised. He has 906 passing yards, which is third most of anyone in their first three games.
Yes.
The only two exceptions are Cam Newton and Justin Herbert. I think he's pretty much the only one who hasn't thrown an interception in one of his first three games. Tank Dell looks like
He looked
a
phenomenal.
rookie sensation. He is like, I think one of the biggest things we're realizing now is the era of like guys being quote unquote too small for the NFL might be over, particularly at
Yeah.
the wide receiver position.
I think
Um,
I think the best way to describe it, and I'm gonna take this back to professional wrestling, because Vince McMahon was like, "Oh, if you're not at least 6'6", 275, I don't want to see you in my ring." And then you have all the guys on the indie circuits, all the smaller dudes killing it and like selling out smaller shows, and then people that were in charge of the developmental one. It's like, hey, scrawny guy, 5'11", 205, you're working with me now. And
mhm.
these kids are become like are the big some of the biggest stars in professional wrestling today. And I think that's kind of what's happened. It took a little bit longer of a turn for that to happen in the NFL, but it's like it's no longer just I'm a big dude that can throw my weight around, or I'm a big strong man. It's smaller guys going, "Hey, I'm actually like really skilled at this."
Mhm.
And people at first were like, "Oh, I don't believe it." And then it's just like all of a sudden it's like, "Oh, you know what? Maybe Devontae Smith isn't too small to be a wide receiver, or like Jason Kelsey compared to offensive lineman and defensive lineman is a small dude, but everyone's singing his praises like every single week."
Right, right. Um, yeah, and yeah, it feels like an entire avenue, and we'll talk about it as we get to sort of one of the biggest games of the week. Like it feels like a sort of door that was previously closed has been opened. It feels like this was the natural endpoint of sort of the offensive revolution that came with like inadvertently came from like cutting down on huge hits and like
Yeah,
minimizing like severe like the era of jacked up is over and the era of the short king is upon us inadvertently.
yeah, no, it's no longer jacked up. It is now skill.
Yeah. And on top of that, it's at least and like what I'll say for the Texans is like the sign of a team that's got like grit is you go into a game that you have no reason to win
And
and it
win.
doesn't feel like a fluke.
Yeah,
It doesn't feel like an accident like some of the other upsets this week.
no, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later when we're talking about the lows. Um, Jacksonville clearly got outplayed.
Yeah. Like and that like again, it wasn't a fluke. It wasn't like, well, if that fumble didn't or that interception didn't happen, like the game would be completely different. No,
Yeah,
they lost convincingly and we'll get to them.
yeah. All right. Next up, we have Cole. The Indianapolis Colts pull out a big win against the Baltimore Ravens.
Yes. As the Lamar Jackson stan of the group, I will just say it's all right. This was a weird game.
It was
I
a weird game, but a good game.
It was fun to watch. It was like I'll never say no to a sloppy stakes game where it's just raining and there's mud everywhere
Oh
and
yeah,
they're kicking a lot of field goals and it's like let's slop it up. Um, Sort of Caspod beloved Justin Tucker missed like a 60-yard field
he
goal.
did. Yep.
Gardner Minshew pulled a run into the end zone.
Classic Minshew madness. Another
My
Caspod favorite. And when I
yes,
say Caspod
he
favorites, I'm mostly talking about me.
look. I know he won, but he was very bad in this
He
game.
was
He
not. He wasn't
was
looking
not
good.
good. He averaged 5 yards a throw.
Here's
Um,
here's the thing though. If Minshew Madness did not look good in this game, correct? And they like barely won out in overtime. They got that field goal game going for them. Are we in agreement that Anthony Richardson looks better than, as of right now, looks better than Minshew Madness?
Oh, by a country mile. Like the people who are like, oh, the Colts have a better chance of winning if they play Minshew right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, do 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 do. Here comes the clown car. Do 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 do. Like, come on. Like, they don't have to win this game by accident if they have Anthony Richardson. If for no other reason than Anthony Richardson on halfway through overtime could have just been like, screw it, I'm putting my head down and I'm running for 20 yards. Um, yeah, so there were like 3 different penalties that could have been called on the Colts to give
Hold on a
Baltimore the
second,
win,
Carter.
both in regular season.
I'm getting a comment from the peanut gallery of my wife playing games on the couch. Apparently, agreement is not a word, and the word I'm looking for is agreement. Oh well.
The English, all right, let her know that the English language is fluid. Like, I have read Old English, like Beowulf era, like a lot of that text for my Renaissance fair days. It is borderline incomprehensible compared to how we write the language today. It is always evolving. We can make up words. It's all good in the hood.
I think we're both in agreement that it is perfectly okay to make up words.
Yeah, but like honestly, this did not reduce my stock because like one, despite all the injury, because like the Ravens already have a small infirmary going.
Yeah.
Their defense looked great. One of my low key favorite players in the league, Kyle Hamilton, who was like a safety who played for Notre Dame, who fell in the draft because I think there was like I don't remember if it was a back problem or something. He looked like a man on a mission. He had 3 sacks. Love him. Lamar Jackson, despite like not the sexiest passing stats, just like again reaffirmed that when he's healthy, he just moves at a speed that is different than everyone else. Like in the NFL today, you either need a field tilter who is someone so fast that the entire geometry of your defense has to move to compensate, so you have as many people who could possibly tackle him as possible, or a phase shifter who like can inexplicably escape a phone booth when everyone's in there trying to stab him.
Yeah, no.
And he had 3 of those plays.
Yeah, I don't think this was a bad showing from the Ravens. That's why it wasn't even like considered being mentioned on the lows list. It wasn't a bad showing by the Ravens. It was just a better showing by the Colts.
Oh yeah.
And this also brings up the point I was making a little bit earlier before words were said. If in the theoretical atmosphere, since Anthony Richardson is considered, at least by us, better than Minshew Madness, how would have the game gone if Richardson was playing? Would it have been? Would the Ravens have been smoked, or would it still have been close?
I think it would have been a similar game, just because the rain would have continued to make passing difficult. I think either the Colts win it in regulation, or like I do think the Colts win a little easier, is how I would say it. Assuming the Ravens had the same amount of bad luck with the referees, I would say the Colts probably have 1 or 2 more like chunk plays that give them the advantage.
Yeah, so
like
similar score, but not going into overtime is what you're
probably.
saying. Okay,
that's what my gut says. Yes, and that leads us to the Dolphins nearly setting a record for points in a single game.
Dear Lord.
I'm going to be honest, I kind of I was like watching Red Zone, and then once we got to halftime of the Bills game, and it's like, yeah, they're not losing this. I started to like do some chores so I could like get out in front of them, so I'd be ready to go like right on time for D&D and stuff. And I was like, oh, so they just scored 50, right? And then I look and I'm like, no fucking what?
What an insane set of like circumstances. And it's just like they balled out, and they balled out hard.
I've been trying to watch like the replays of it because I just need to understand how something like this happens. And
Broncos country can't ride.
Yeah, let's can we please like dissuade ourselves of this notion of like, oh, their defense is actually really, really good. Like, no, no, their defense has, like, it was decent last year and it's not good this year. Like, again, this is affirming one of my beliefs of like any team that says they're a quarterback away, they're not a quarterback away.
No.
Because this defense has collapsed. And that's the thing that got me, because, like, okay, the first touchdown, that's just Tyreek Hill doing Tyreek Hill things.
Yeah.
The second one is like a really clever play where you like pitch it, throw it, like basically do a forward pitch behind the line of scrimmage to the running back who no one sees because he's hiding behind the line. Like it's a good like drama play.
Yeah.
The third play is another like great set of circumstances. And then like the next five are just like three different guys have a chance to tackle them on any given play and they just don't. And I'm like, this can't be just speed, right? This feels like you're just not trying.
Yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic of like how this happened. It's not a
Mhm.
it wasn't clear like what went wrong with the Broncos outside of the fact that they're just the Broncos. Offense wasn't fire. Like you can't blame offense, you can't blame defense because they
Yeah,
both
what the
did.
fuck is Russell Wilson supposed to do there?
Yeah, he's got like Cortland Sutton, who I personally am not a huge fan of because I had him on fantasy a couple years in a row,
Mm,
and he only disappointed me those years. He did good this game,
mhm.
but he's on the little imaginary blacklist I have for like players that have failed me more than once. Um, and I used like way too high of a draft pick for them. Looking at you, Cam
Mhm.
Akers, um, that he's on the list of like you know what you're you're not making it back onto my team. Whether you could be the first number one, like the new Justin Jefferson, you should be number one, and you're not welcome.
Right. Well, it feels like a part of what happened was just like, the Broncos put up at least a fight going into the third, and then
Yeah,
they scored two touchdowns in the third quarter. And I think in their head it's like, all right, we're done. The game's over. Like we're down 49-13. And then the Colts just decided to keep going.
yeah.
Like or the Ravens or Jesus,
Dolphins.
the
Dolphins is the
Dolphins
term
decided.
you're looking for. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Decided to keep going. There's actually some rumblings. So Mike McDaniel has some connection to Nathaniel Hackett through like various coaching trees. And apparently a lot of people who are like in the same sort of sphere as Hackett were really, really, really mad about the comments Sean Payton made
Yeah.
about like, oh, what a terrible coaching job. Which I'm like, okay, but are you going to deny that? Like again, Russell Wilson's a weird guy, but it's just so weird to me that they decided to prove a point to defend Nathaniel Hackett, the man who is now on his second straight stint, like his second team in a row, where he's like, yeah, so I was going to let Aaron Rodgers make the offense, and he's not here right now. So, you know, I'll just get my check every week, and I'll clean up after myself in the locker room.
Yeah.
Um, and like, I don't know. I like Sean Payton. And like at the end of the day, like clearly he's just getting ready to like he's getting mentally just preparing to blow up half this team. But like woof a doofa. All right. I actually wanted to this was gonna be my question of the week, and we might as well just ask it now.
Yeah.
Is it more of a dick move to stop at 70 or break the record? Because I have a very strong take on this, believe it or
Honestly,
not.
I feel like it's if you're scoring 70, not like if it's like a blowout and you're like kind of like the Chiefs did where you're stopping earlier in the game.
Yeah.
Um it's kind of like it's like all right, you're kind of like stopping while you're clearly ahead. We're not going to catch up. We all know it. So that's not really a dick move, but if you're at like 70, like smoking them by 50 points, and you're what's the record? 76? Is that
I think it was 72. I
72?
think they would have broken it if they got in the field goal.
Yeah.
And they were in position to kick the field goal and took a knee, which is
Yeah.
the important
If
thing
you're
to know.
if you're that close to that kind of record, I say just go for it. Like
Right?
if you're if I lose to like a 50-point deficit, it's going to suck if it's like 50-0. It's going to suck if it's like thir- 10 to 40 or whatever
Mhm.
the math is. But if you're that close to breaking the record and you just don't, that's the bigger insult. Okay.
Exactly. Okay, I'm glad we're on the same page with this because it is such a bigger. Because like, if you score 70, it is so clear that you're doing it just to like rub it in and be
Yeah.
a dick.
You
Like,
could.
if you're going for history,
Yeah.
at least it's like you're going for history. Like, that's the thing of like the Patriots were running up the scores during their undefeated streak, but at the same time, it was like, well, we want to break records. We want to
Yeah.
like show that we can break records. We want Tom Brady to have the most passing touchdowns in a single season.
Yeah.
We want Randy Moss to get the most receiving touchdowns. You were achieving something, not just
Which,
being
what a
like,
deadly
I don't like this
combination.
coach.
Maybe in the off season or like bye weeks we'll talk about like low key like combinations that were deadly. Tom Brady and Randy Moss.
It's wild that they set that Randy Moss's record still hasn't been broken, and I think only one person. I think Patrick Mahomes tied it, and I know Peyton broke it, but I don't think anyone else has gotten past that because Peyton had that insane season with the Broncos.
Yeah.
It's wild that it inexplicably feels weirdly like understated, just because they only really got one full season together before Tom Brady tore his ACL.
Yeah. Anyway,
But yeah,
yeah, no, Dolphins should have finished it. Cuz how
yeah.
what do you think sounds better? We lost by 50 points or we lost by 53 points, but they broke the record.
A historical turnout, not just, man, we really sucked.
Yeah.
Um, yes. Anywho, on to the next game. The Cardinals,
Yes.
against all odds, against God and King,
Yes.
have won a game, and conveniently, it was against the Cowboys.
Ah, I felt so great watching that game.
It really is one of those games where you're like, well, that's it, like it felt like the car had stalled out, and there's like zombies approaching, and you're like, it'll turn on, it'll turn on. Oh no,
It's like it's like how at the beginning of the season we're talking about like the Buccaneers like they're going to be trash, but they didn't really prove it
or
until
fine,
this past week, in my opinion.
right? Which we'll talk about.
Um, but the Cardinals they looked like they were going to be trash, and weeks 1 and 2, it's like they're on the edge of it, but they couldn't quite get out of the trash can. You know,
Mhm.
they're trying to climb out, but they can't get their foot up like over the lining or whatever. And then this game, they just said screw it and knocked over the trash can and climbed out. And what a great showing, in my opinion.
Oh
Also,
yeah,
I'm gonna need to make that a shirt of the Arizona Cardinal climbing out of a trash can to spirit
the little
everyone.
bird.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's so funny. And it's interesting because like they just sort of like out. I don't even know how to describe it. They just sort of like outmanned them. Like they just kind of like methodically cut through them with the running game. James Conner, the eternal man, and
guess who's on my
on
fantasy
defense.
team?
Yeah, I know. Like I'm always like never gonna draft him, never gonna draft him, and it's like sometimes you just got to pick the boring guy.
Yeah,
You know, as one fantasy podcast described it, go home to your wife. Just just no, don't go out to the club. Just go home to your wife. Um, and yeah, and then the defense just showed up just enough in the red zone to
yep.
get through it. And I'm like,
Kenny Max Boy, Kaiser White.
and you know what it really is? It like we've talked about this a lot in terms of like, oh, they're tanking. At the end of the day, the player like management will tank. Players will not. Because at the end of the day, like Josh Dobbs doesn't know if he'll ever get a chance to play football ever again after this.
Yeah,
Like these guys are fighting for their damn lives to make sure they get another contract after
yeah.
this. Like they
It's
can't afford to phone it in. And I
it's the
appreciate
Carson
them
Wentz
proving that.
situation. Carson Wentz
Ex-
on the Reds or Commanders. I almost went way back for a second. He, um, he didn't do good on the Colts. Went to the Commanders, and that was his like prove it team, and he didn't do good. Made it
and now he's just might be done.
and I. I mean, he might be done. He might be going to the Jets to back up Zach Wilson. Who's to say?
Yeah, it really is like, it's nice to see them put up a fight and like, are they still going to have one of the top picks in the draft?
That's the
Yeah,
question.
probably.
Yeah.
But they've proven enough that it's like, well, a lot of these people are going to get to stay for this rebuild. A lot of people are going to get to stay to be a part of this.
Jobs
Um,
jobs were saved in this game.
yes, jobs are being secure through this season.
Yeah.
What is your don't sleep on game?
Ooh, this was a little tough for me at first, but I think I came down to it towards like I would say maybe 5 minutes ago. It
Hmm.
now I'm second guessing myself because I wasn't that committed to it. I'm gonna screw it. Saints Packers.
Ooh, right.
I
We haven't talked about our boy Jordan yet.
Yeah. Um. Nothing like if we're talking about a come from behind, like they were down 17-0 at half, and even through the third quarter, 17-0, and they just pulled it all out for the win at the end.
Oh yeah.
And
Um,
like if you're losing by almost 3 touchdowns, like that's a little demoralizing. Like regardless at what point in the game you're in, and then you get to specifically the fourth quarter and you're down by 3 touchdowns. This is when other teams are starting to pull their starters,
mm,
and you just get down in the trenches. You get on your haunches, and you're just like, we're gonna win. And Jordan Love pulls out all the strats. Did it help that Derek Carr might have gotten a boo boo, or he did get a boo boo, but and pulled from the
yes.
game?
What is it? Shoulder sprain, I believe,
Shoulder.
or AC joint strain, I believe.
It's a shoulder something or other. Um, but it's nothing serious, fortunately.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Um,
but they had an opportunity, kind of like technically the Bears did, when it's just like, all right, they're pulling all like starting quarterbacks out. Some of their better players aren't playing. We can get this win, and where the Broncos, or not the Broncos, the Bears decided to be a failure. Green Bay pulled it around. And
right.
yeah, I was like, did I lose Carter?
Oh, sorry. Spaced out there for a sec because I was thinking of my point. Well, because like I was worried we were gonna, as I was watching that game, I was worried we were gonna have to come on here and be like, all right, he's turning into a pumpkin a little
I
bit.
I
Because
was also afraid of announcing a Jordan Love bust moment. Um,
yes,
I'm not. I'm. I'm. I'm trying to keep this unbiased enough that if people I like or teams I like do pull out a bust, we're gonna talk about it. I might not be happy about the conversation, but we're gonna talk about it.
oh yeah, and because like he threw a bad pick, he seemed a little off. Granted, the Saints defense is actually very good, but he was like kind of fighting for his life. There was one play I was worried he might have actually blown his knee out on.
Was it the
They
one
tried to
where
do
he
a
did a
reverse
split?
flea. Yes, it was the reverse flea flicker where he fumbled the flea flicker, tried to throw it off like a really bad bounce where his legs were so spread out. I'm like, no, no, dude, you're gonna tear your ACL, and then he kind of just threw it over the guy's head.
Which
But then like
in that situation, in that pose, great throw.
honestly, it was shockingly close considering he had no base to throw on.
Yeah.
Or no correct base to throw on. But yeah, they just kind of they just kind of methodically went downfield, and the minute they got the 2 point conversion, I'm like, oh, they're winning this game. Like you could see how fired up everyone is, and just hearing, and again, you're like, what are you gonna say? Actually, I don't like Jordan Love, but at the same time, they seem so fired up around him, and like at
He
this point, I'm confident that the floor is Brock Purdy, sort of a game management, cool under pressure guy who can take advantage of what he has and get you some wins. The difference is Brock Purdy needs Christian McCaffrey, Debo
yes.
Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle,
My,
Trent Williams, and a good defense.
Yeah,
While as he,
my take is still you can throw in almost any quarterback into, as long as they're not the worst quarterback in the league,
Mhm.
into the 49ers offense and they'll win.
Whereas Jordan Love is working without his best receiver, without his best
Right.
running back, his left tackle playing half the games. The defense is spotty at best, and yet he's still pulling this out. So, like again, the floor feels very safe, and the ceiling feels like, especially as he's getting his pieces back, feels
Yes.
exciting.
Yeah, no.
Um,
There if as of right now, this kid and the conditions he's working in, I think that the next rest of the season build up, like re get everyone healthy, get everyone doing good. He's showing up pretty damn well, and
hmm.
then you spend your off season collecting either weapons or just protection for him or the defense, and this kid's gonna be having a fire season in the future.
Oh yeah. My sleeper game of the week is one you're not going to see coming, and it's mostly because I have a spicy hot take for it. Um,
I'm very interesting.
the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Las Vegas Raiders.
Really,
And
that
yes, because
I
here's my hot.
I watched it. It was a good game, but hit me.
Well, here's my hot take. I would argue the Las Vegas Raiders are in a worse place than both the Denver Broncos and the New York Jets in terms of their future is fucked because of the decisions they've made.
Yeah, no, they made some poor decisions, and it wasn't a big spread of a game either.
Right. And like, yeah, because Pittsburgh didn't play well. Like Kenny Pickett got two late touchdowns, which is like whatever. That like they continue to not be able to run the ball, and I'm like, I might be ready to bail on Najee Harris, unfortunately. But like, so here is kind of where it all. I don't even. All right, where to start? Where to start? Where to start? Um, so for starters, Jimmy Garoppolo threw three interceptions and got a concussion.
Yeah,
Josh Jacobs looks as disgruntled as ever, and he's clearly out of shape. He's running terribly, and it clearly looks like he was not putting. Well, I'm not going to say that, but it's hard to get into game shape while like just not on the field. So he needs more time. They really lack, other than Max Crosby, they lack any significant tastemakers on defense. Devontae Adams, more and more, looks like a luxury that they could not afford. On top of the fact that he has to be pretty annoyed that he came here to play with his like high school teammate, and now his high school teammate is gone.
yep,
And more pressingly, Josh McDaniels single-handedly cost them this game. It was 2 minutes, 22 seconds left. They needed 8 points. Um, and he decided to kick the field goal on fourth down instead of going for it, thinking, surely we'll be able to stop them and also score another touchdown. That's the thing. The field goal did not make it where they could tie it with a field goal. They needed to score a touchdown either way.
yeah,
So why not just score the touchdown? Like, just go for it. There's no chance you're going to get the ball back.
yeah,
Like, you know how this goes. He gave up on the game, basically. He threw in the towel. And here's the thing. They can't afford to fire him because the Raiders, because the difference between like coaches and players is like coaches salaries come straight out of the owner's pockets, and
yes,
the owner of the Raiders, the Davis family, like they aren't particularly cash rich. Like they are one of sort of the old guard, like back when it was millionaires owning these teams, not billionaires. So they don't just have a pool of money that they can just, like the Walmart family can afford to pay Nathaniel Hackett for years on top of Sean Payton.
yeah,
Like they own Walmarts. Like it's fine. It's water off their back. Like the Raiders can't afford to, so they're stuck with this guy theoretically indefinitely as their investments on offense don't work, their defense doesn't work. They don't have an awful lot of picks. They have nothing, truly nothing. And it's something about the disaster of the end of that game, like really made me sit down and just look at all the different pieces. It was like the same thing that happened when the Cardinals lost that playoff game against the Rams and Kyler Murray looked like he was having a meltdown.
oh yeah,
Where you just sit down and you look over like who they owe money, where all of their picks have gone, and like what the roadmap for development is, and you're just like, oh shit, this might be the peak, huh?
yeah. We reached a point, and who knows if we're gonna get past it.
Right. And like, yeah, this is on top of like, they're still in the aftermath of the John Gruden disaster, the Henry Ruggs disaster.
Yeah.
Like, this franchise is in a pit right now. And I love Schadenfreude. Shall we move on to the lowlights?
Sure.
I believe our note for this is just what the fuck, Jacksonville.
Yeah.
I sometimes you can just sum it up as that. And here's what I mean when I say like don't like lock in any of your opinions until like October, because I'm still convinced that the Jaguars will be fine. This is a very concerning loss, but not necessarily a
It's
catastrophic loss.
um give me one sec. It's not it's it's like the who are they called? The Giants. There we go.
Hmm.
It's like the Giants situation of, if we're talking about the playoff caliber team from last season, what is going on with them?
Right.
But based off of how this, like, if you told me this was going to be the score week -1, I would have been like, get the hell out of here. Get out of my swamp.
Yeah, I didn't see this
After
one coming, and I didn't
after
even make
week 1
waffles.
and week 2 performances, it's like I'm not a fan of it. Jacksonville is like one of those teams that it's like I'm not gonna go out of my way to root for them, but it's like if they're not playing a team that like, I'm gonna say I hope they win.
Hmm.
And who this was a real stinker of a game for them. Just
Yeah, it just felt like they got caught with their pants down. Like they were down 17 points going by the end of the second quarter and just never really recovered.
yeah,
There's a brief moment where you're like, all right, let's get serious. And it didn't happen. But at the same time, like Trevor Lawrence has had more drops, like more, I believe the analytics stat is most lost points due to drops than any other player in the
yeah.
league right now. Like they've left a lot of points on the cutting room floor. They're still running the ball well. It's mostly I'm concerned that their defense just still doesn't have any gas, which is a
I'm
problem because their number one overall pick last 2 years ago was a defensive end.
yeah.
But
I, I'm not.
I think going to London will help them.
I'm not saying that there's a clear side of the ball to blame, because it was a
Mm-hmm.
terrible performance by both sides of the ball this last game. But I think I think offense just needs better coaching, and
Right.
Trevor
For some
Lawrence.
reason, Doug Peterson gave up play calling, and I think he really needs to strongly consider
Yeah,
getting that back.
he needs to get back into that, and I think it's like Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow. They kind of just need to take like like not not get into super heavy practice for a week and just kind of get their head back on their shoulders. Like
Mm-hmm.
stay in workouts. Don't go doing anything super above like and beyond, but and just get your lives together.
Right.
Like if Trevor
Yeah. I
needs to go to the Waffle House, Dougie P, give him the company card and take him to the Waffle House.
Yeah. And that's like what I mean when I say that it's like crazy how quick the season goes once it starts. It's just hard to like when the vibes get messy, it's very hard to stop it.
Yeah,
It's very hard to like rewind and get control of things. But at the same time, it's like they're going to London right now. I think that'll be very good for them. I think that's like what the doctor ordered. They have 2 weeks there before they come
yes,
back. And we'll see if they can just take a deep breath and right the ship a little bit.
yeah. They're gonna be out there for back-to-back weeks, which this is the first time it's been done, or
Maybe I'd have to double check. It is kind of horse hockey that the Bills lose a home game for this because
yeah,
it's like the Jaguars never sell out their stadium. Make those the home games. Come on.
yeah. But what you gonna do? Fancy people,
Yeah.
they just want to wear both their jerseys in Europe.
Yeah, let the Brits see everything. Second,
Minnesota.
they lose the cursed franchise bowl. This lived up to my hype of like this is going to have the stupidest ending in the history of the sport.
And that did.
Um, it was a very back and forth game. Um, Keenan Allen went Super Saiyan. Justin Jefferson went Super Saiyan. The Chargers' lead rusher was 11 carries for 12 yards. And the Chargers almost blow this. They need like a 4th and 1 to get the first down and run out the clock. And instead of just doing the tush push that everyone's been doing, or just like, throwing the ball because no one's stopping Keenan Allen.
No.
They instead try a fullback dive that was so telegraphed, and you're like, oh my god, they're gonna blow this. The Vikings march downfield, and you're like, wow, Brandon Staley's getting fired. Then the Vikings somehow screw up. Like Kirk Cousins couldn't figure out what the play was, so they wasted all their clock, and then hastily threw a ball that got deflected before it got intercepted, and the Vikings end up losing. Truly a sliding doors of like, oh, like the Chargers could have imploded after that disaster. Brandon Staley looked shell shocked after his call screwed up. I will say, like, one of the reasons everyone's like, oh, why don't they ban the Jalen Hurts thing? And it's like, well, because, or why doesn't everyone do it? And it's like, well, because not all quarterbacks are built equal.
Yeah.
Yes, Justin Herbert is big, but at the same time, he also destroyed his ribs last year. They're not rushing to have him throw himself into unnecessary peril.
They spent a lot of money on that kid.
Yes. I will say there's an interesting point to be made about like all the like how risk averse so many of the running quarterbacks are now that like this round of quarterbacks has gotten money, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah.
It is just like truly a game that lived up to all my expectations. And now the Vikings, and here's the thing, it would have been worse for the Chargers because the Chargers have expectations.
Yes.
There's an understanding in the Vikings room that it's like, look, last year was our chance. This is kind of a semi rebuild. And the big thing is they just need to convince Justin Jefferson, who decided not to sign a contract this year. Like, buddy, I know this sucks. I know you're unhappy, but you have to. If you gut this out, we will get you the quarterback. We promise. We will get Caleb. We'll get Drake. Everything's going to work out if you just stay here, please.
This was, in my opinion, a nail in the coffin game of whoever lost this. I'm not saying they're more cursed, but it's like this is going to be a bad showing for both, like a real bad showing for the loser, and it kind of was because it's Kirk Cousins and he's got Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson, kind of Alexander Mattison. Like he's more of a game by game basis, but like we can all agree that Justin Jefferson is the guy, and him not re-signing, and this is what's happening, is going to make him feel like he's made exclusively the right choice. And
right.
He's putting up great averages, great touchdowns, great yards every single game.
He's projected to absolutely shatter the yards record.
Yeah.
Assuming he can keep relatively close to this pace.
The kid is phenomenal. But the second that the Vikings tank a little bit more, pretty much from this point out, Justin Jefferson he's not even going to bother like making phone calls. He's going to put out a vague tweet of just like, I'm thinking about going somewhere on vacation this off season, winky face, and that his agent's phone is going to just be blown up by any team that has money.
Oh yeah, he will break the wide receiver contract. It's just a matter of what team is going to pony up. And yeah, Minnesota, the rest of your season is a sales pitch on why you can stay in Minnesota. That you don't have to be like Randy Moss and go to greener pastures. You can stay here and do cool things.
Yeah, and they have a pretty back and forth season of if the team they're playing is really good or really bad. Because they got Panthers. It's like, all right, they're also in the dumps too. But then they got 49ers. They got the Bears. They got the Chiefs. It's so all over the place for them that it's just like this season. I don't know how this season's gonna go for them. They got the Broncos.
Mm,
It's just like
that's going to be a funny one.
if they continue at the rate that they're going, mark my words, when the Broncos and Vikings play in Week 11, that might be my game of the week.
Oh God. Well, I mean, the Bears and Broncos are coming up soon too.
That's next
I
week. Yeah,
We really need to talk about like they need to start forcing their weight around with some of the flex scheduling stuff.
yeah. Um,
Um,
that was gonna be my question of the week before I put this one. Um, and
hmm.
um, so it's Baker Mayfield and Sam Howell, and stop wish casting quarterbacks with the Jets. It's just give up. It's Jover.
Yeah, I took some
These,
creative liberties with this one.
yeah, these are your notes.
Yeah. So first off, like again, one of my themes for this episode is whatever your convictions were going into the season, it doesn't hurt to stick with them until October. And case in point, for the Eagles Bucks game, which I assume you don't want to talk about too much lest you jinx the team going forward.
I can talk. It's already happened. I can talk about it.
Right.
I don't want
Like
to
this
talk future
affirmed.
as much as possible.
Fair, fair. And this game affirmed because like the Eagles offense was again they were miscues. They were apparently Jalen Hurts was sick.
Yeah,
It kind of underlines one of my suspicions that a lot of these sloppy offensive games are because a lot of players have COVID. But
yeah,
um, yeah, they were sloppy. They were a little off, but at the same time, like, well, whatever. Are they going to go down and score? I took a shower at halftime because I'm like, this is pretty secure right now. And then I hear Mike Evans make an incredible catch, and it's like a 14-point lead. And I'm like, son of a bitch, what happened? How are they up by 14? And then it's like the Eagles are up by 14 points. And I'm like, oh,
yeah.
right. Of course they are. It was the same thing, weirdly similar game with the Bills and Commanders, where like the offense was kind of just slow and plotting and methodical, and they were
Yeah.
scoring, but like going into half, it was only 13-0.
You.
But at the same time, there was already a feeling of like, well, we already won.
Yeah.
Like,
It was like the offenses for both Bills and Eagles did good enough that they would make their way down the field, and the vast majority of the time you're just like, all right, I can expect them to at least get field goal range.
mhm.
If they get more, they get more. Awesome. If they don't, they don't. And
Right.
like you can feel that pretty solidly about both games. But the defenses, that's who came to play for both games too.
Right. Well, and that's what I mean. It's like Josh Allen throws a pick, and I'm like, all right, cool. Is Sam Howell going to go down 90 yards down the field and score a
No.
touchdown? No. He's going to get sacked for the eighth time.
Yeah.
He's actually on pace to shatter the sack record. He could be like he's currently projected to be sacked 100 times, and I'm like,
Awesome.
you need to take him out off the field before that happens. He might die. He might actually die.
Oh, we'll
Like
see.
Derek Carr got sacked 70 times in his first season and he never physically recovered, like psychologically or physically recovered. Like you cannot, at some point, you have to pull the plug just for him. Um, but yeah, again, it's like Baker and Howell are similar, like scrappy underdog guys who
Yeah.
are capable of surprises, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day, they are not elevators.
Pulled out
And
big
if they
wins for
go
their
against
team.
yeah, if they go against top five defenses, they will get folded like laundry.
Yeah. And um, it's not I don't want to say the same for the Buccaneers, but for the Washington, they've got probably two of the best defenses in their division.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I hate to compliment them, I can't deny that they're a solid defense. So it's like
Right,
this
right.
he's going to have wave after wave of people because think about it. Eagles blow it a little bit at the goal line. And like stopping a touchdown, they didn't go for the field goal and Tampa gets the ball and it's just like, all right, we need to get it out of this end zone as fast as possible. What is your logical course of action to get the ball out of the end zone as fast as possible?
Mm,
You're you're gonna wanna throw it. I assume
right.
heavy protection. Get one or two guys on the outside, and you just get out of there. What is the thing you probably don't want to do? You're up against a defense that has been stopping almost every single one of your runs. I don't I don't know this for a fact, and I don't think this is a stat I can easily look up, but how many first downs did the Buccaneers get off of rushing? Like
Their running has been terrible for
for
years
like
now,
more than
basically since Tommy Boy came.
yeah, for like more than 10 like a more than like I would say 5 yard rush. How many of those did they get? Cuz their receiving game like they got some solid averages, but rushing 14 carries, 38 yards, 2.7 average, 2.0 average, zero point 0.5 average. So you would think on a goal line play where you have to run 100 yards, you don't want to trust that rushing team because the Eagles defense just ate them.
Right.
The Bills defense just ate Washington. I the only plays I saw from the Washington offense were when the Bills defense were just demolishing them.
8 sacks, 4 picks, 1 touchdown, and fumble recovery.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
Correctamundo. And for the Jets, it's
It's
so they signed Trevor Siemian, and people are like, oh, they need better than that. Go get Kirk Cousins. Who like no one who has a good backup is going to trade their backup, and
yeah,
more importantly, they can't. So the Colts GM, when pressed about like, why do you keep dragging your feet about drafting a rookie quarterback? Why don't you just bring in a new guy? Like, why do you keep getting like middle of the road veterans? And he just made the point of like, he basically said the quiet part out loud of like, hey, I might only get one chance to draft a quarterback, and if I get it wrong, I'm fired. But
yeah,
if I can get a lot of chances to draft running backs, wide receivers, linemen, to varying degrees of success,
yeah. No,
like
if you're drafting the team's next quarterback, especially a first round or even second round quarterback, you've gotta you gotta have the best feeling about the kid.
right. And here's the thing about like, big risks come with a lot of caveats. And picking Aaron Rodgers was a big risk. Not only was he expensive, you had to give up a lot of trade assets
Yes.
that you now don't have. And now you have to do the calculus of, do we waste a lot of money to get a big, better backup? Or do we like accept that we're going to just suck this year and keep our first round draft pick that was conditional? Um,
Yeah.
he insists on bringing in his wide receivers who he likes, even though they're all kind of washed up. Like, that's the thing. Outside of Garrett Wilson, like, the Jets wide receiver core isn't as good as we seem to think it is. Like, Corey Davis, who's in my Robert Woods nexus of, like, really, really, really good second tier receivers, retired.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Lazard doesn't really have anything left. I like
Yeah.
like the floor is very low for them. He you bring in Nathaniel Hackett to appease him, even though Nathaniel Hackett has now proven that if he can't have Aaron Rodgers, which is something you needed to consider when you brought in Aaron Rodgers,
Yeah.
who is old and was kind of falling off even in his second MVP year, he has no offense or no creativity. Like, you set all of this up, and the cornerstone piece, the pillar that was supposed to hold it all together, has collapsed. And now you literally cannot do anything
Yeah.
else. You don't have the luxury to go get another quarterback. You can't, like, there. You don't. Minnesota is not trading you Kirk Cousins
Yeah.
because
No.
on the off chance he wins a Super Bowl, they're going to look like dumbasses.
Yeah.
Like, you're not
Unless.
going to get Jacoby Brissett because he's valuable. Like, you're fucked. Just accept it.
Yeah.
Lay down and die.
Yeah. No. Here's the thing about the whole Jets situation, and it's not like tooting Aaron Rodgers' horn, but it's definitely not to. It's Zach Wilson. Just he's clearly not the guy. And if you think about the roster, um, for the Jets, Brees Hall, very good at rushing. Alan Lazard, like you said, on his way out, but still not he hasn't hit the terrible point yet, where it's just like put this man down, like I might have said about Aaron Rodgers. But that's beside the point. Garrett Wilson, like, still got some time on him, and then you look at their defense, and I kind of want to get to this. This is more of the notes section, but it's like apparently with there's rumors going around that the coaching staff slash ownership of the Jets, they're refusing to like undouble down on Zach Wilson, and the Jets defense is getting pissed. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the other side of the ball, the people that don't even share the same drives with him, are pissed about this. So that might be saying something for the offensive side of the ball too, which honestly I imagine it is. But apparently it's causing some high tensions in the locker room. Cause
And I just, again, like, you have to be adults. Like, having a meeting where Zach Wilson is not there. And again, the problem is you built all of this around having Aaron Rodgers, when in reality, you could have gotten Jimmy Garoppolo, or you could have
yeah,
gotten David Carr, or fuck, Dobbs looks like a better option right now, and
Dobbs did
saved
look
money to, yeah, because it's like, hey, maybe you could have built that offensive line that Aaron Rodgers was running for his life behind. Maybe you could have not had to go get all of Aaron Rodgers' friends and gotten better receivers and not
yeah,
traded Elijah Moore, who is a good wide receiver.
yeah.
Like,
They
you
lost
have
a
to
lot.
just yeah, you have to sit down, just get everyone other than Zach Wilson in a room and be like, we know, okay? We're not fucking dumb. Like, we know this is bad. We know this is a disaster. This is literally the worst case scenario, but we are stuck. And I'm sorry that you guys are all wasting a year on this, but we literally don't have another option. And the more toxic you get, the fact that you guys were so toxic in the first place last year is why we felt pressured to go for the big gun. We went for the MVP, and it blew up in our faces. So can you all just suck it up, and we'll get a mid-tier, we'll get a fucking Brock Purdy next year, and everybody will be happy, okay? Just be cool. We're not dealing with this for 4 more months.
We're gonna be dealing with this for 4 more months because
Yeah,
if they
because
if they
ESPN cut out that much time for the Jets, and by God, they're going to Nelson.
yeah, nah, Jets are gonna get their TV matches rescheduled for their.
Yeah,
That's totally
this is
going to happen.
seriously. This is why we changed flex, so you can flex any game theoretically.
Yeah,
For the love of God.
but
But like, yeah, you
no,
just have to tell the rest of the team to grow up. You're gonna have to take your lumps again. And again, I know like football careers are short, but like,
yeah.
what
Here's
else is there to do?
here's the thing. I'm more on the opposite side of the spectrum where it's like I feel like they have the right to be mad, cause
Oh, they do, but
yeah.
like, there's nothing that can be done other than be
Oh,
mad.
I mean, there's nothing that could be done now, but it's like I get Aaron Rodgers, decent quarterback, but you're putting all your eggs into a 40-something-year-old, like, just finished a 15-year reign quarterback when there was a couple of average ish quarterbacks around during the free agent period. Like, they're not good. They weren't bad. And if they, instead of going eggs all into the basket of Aaron Rodgers, and I feel like this could have been made clear where it's just like, if we get like someone pretty decent for, I feel like they could have gotten a steal on Jimmy G. I feel like they could have gotten a
Right.
decent deal on Derek Carr. Like,
But here's the
they're
thing.
not
I
going to get
don't think
screwed over like Aaron Rodgers.
right,
Like,
but
it's
like the
not that
players
bad.
got so salty last year. I feel like they felt pressure where it's like, no, we can't just get a good enough quarterback. We have to get theoretically the best quarterback
Yeah,
possible. Like the overreach, like the meltdown that the defense and the skills position players have been having just keeps pushing them to dumber and dumber extremes.
yeah,
Now we might sincerely see Trevor Simeon in his first play time in uh, 5 years on primetime television against the Kansas City Chiefs. You thought that Bears Chiefs game was bad. This and there's no game you can flex. You can't change the channel on a primetime game, baby. You're stuck there.
yeah.
Al Michaels might kill someone.
No, it's the Jets' defense isn't terrible.
Mhm.
If they went after these kind of more average quarterbacks and used their draft picks and stuff instead of giving like 900,000 of them for Aaron Rodgers, of we'll trade two to here, get this quality like lineman. We're gonna draft these three kids like right off the drafting block. That they might not be amazing, they're not gonna be terrible though. I feel like the Jets had the potential to have like they put all their eggs in the Aaron Rodgers basket, and Aaron Rodgers theoretically could have led them very well. But I feel like putting all their eggs in that basket and honestly getting like just a shakedown by the Green Bay Packers organization for things. They literally held them upside down against the lockers, shook them, and took all their milk money. That's how. That's what
It
happened.
couldn't. It's genuinely hilarious how well the Packers made out of this. After like a couple of years of like extreme angst, they made out like bandits,
Yeah.
and it makes all of the bullshit worth it.
Oh, I said that if the second that Aaron Rodgers said, you know what, I'll stay a Packer, because that was a very real possibility. I would have been the Jets team, and I would have been dialing up my phone and going, "Hi, Jordan Love, where you at? What's the Haps hummingbird?" And they could have gotten him for like maybe a second or third round pick, probably, if Aaron Rodgers decided to stay. Like
Oh yeah,
they probably could have gotten a steal on him because Jordan Love wasn't proven at that point. And this season so far, that kid's stock has risen clearly.
here's my thing. Jets get called up by the Bears. Justin Fields for Zach Wilson straight up, nothing else. The Bears get rid of a guy they clearly don't believe in and just fully tank, hoping that their two first round picks can rebuild the franchise, and probably scaring Caleb Martin into going back to college.
No,
And
kid, if Bears get first round pick, that kid's staying in college. Um,
yeah, he might just be like, I'm just not playing for a year,
yeah, which
whatever.
what a power move, by the way.
Oh God, I don't know. I'm all in on player empowerment. I want to see petty stuff like that. Like when Zion was going to the Pelicans, I kind of be like, no, I want to go to the Knicks. Figure this out. Even though I don't like the Knicks, just because I'm like,
Yeah,
dude, if you have the power to do this, just do it.
I
The
agree.
draft is silly. This is the only thing where we let a draft happen. Well, and the
Yeah,
military, but
that's
um,
beside the point.
yeah, but and then Justin Fields, you can just be like, you know what, man, just do whatever you feel like. Anything to get yards. Like, don't overthink it. If your first guy, if Garrett Wilson isn't open, just run. Just put your head down and go.
Yeah,
And you could probably squeak out like 6 to 7 wins.
yeah, you can maybe hit 500, and depending on how the division does, which it's not going to be the case anymore, you can get that wild card seed, and you know we'll call it a nice run. And then
Right.
next year, when the Vikings continue to blow it, and Justin Jefferson's talking about where he should go on vacation and sending out that tweet, the Jets offense can just be like, oh, maybe maybe we can work something out, get Justin Jefferson,
Oh
and
yeah.
then because before this Aaron Rodgers trade, I think they had the assets to be able to almost afford whoever they wanted,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe a couple of draft picks trades for future years, and they get the number one, and it's just like, hey, we know we're the Jets, Caleb, but Brees Hall, we got Justin Jefferson, Sauce Gardner's on the other side. Hear me out. Anyway, that's enough about that.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
And for the final lowlights, we have a couple different teams listed. Is there any you want to go into detail who we haven't already
um, yeah, no, not really like go into detail. It's more on the lines of Bears, Broncos, and Titans all got Bears got
shellacked?
a yeah, they got laughed at. They all got at least a field goal. Bears, like Titans, did not play well.
See, the Titans are the one, and I know I just said the Jets, but Ryan Tannehill might be the one guy they could realistically get.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he looks as washed as any of the starting quarterbacks right now. Like, even more,
Yes.
because at least Russell Wilson is showing flashes why he was good. Ryan Tannehill is just dead in the water, and Derrick Henry's not getting any yards.
Yeah.
And
Ryan Tannehill and Zach Wilson are ranked on the list of 32 for like the starting quarterbacks. Those two are at least or at most 26.
yeah, it's bleak in those streets for both of those guys. And I'm just mad because, like, again, I don't want any team to let the Browns off the hook. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, God damn it. The idea of seeing the Browns in the playoffs makes me really nauseous, which is a shame because, again, their defense is filled with people I like, and I really love Myles Garrett, and their defense actually is very, very good.
Yeah.
But I digress. And then we also listed Washington, Atlanta, Dallas.
Do you know
I
why
will
those
say,
teams are listed?
why specifically?
They were all teams that um, lo- lost their undefeated streak this week.
Oh, shoot, you're right.
Like, I know more teams did, but it was like these were like big ones that people were like talking about, like Washington versus the Bills. Washington's looking pretty hot first 2 weeks. Bills take them down. Atlanta gets 6 points. And
All of Arthur Blank's nonsense building up to that.
I will not.
I will
I
say,
will never be upset about like people thinking I over mentioned how Dallas Cowboys lost to the Arizona Cardinals.
oh, yeah. And the thing is, like, they were missing a bunch of their O linemen. The defense got thrown a pipe wrench because Trevon Diggs tore his ACL in practice. But still, come on. You have to you gotta, like, you still gotta beat them.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking the Cardinals here. But yeah, Atlanta, it's just so funny. Like, I'm gonna say, I'm kind of buying low on Kyle Pitts still because there's a non-0% chance this Desmond Ritter thing continues to deteriorate so fast they don't have a choice but to put in Henke or whatever his name is. Heineke, that's it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was thinking the former Sixers GM, Heineke. And Heineke, for all his faults, like, he's never going to be a particularly good quarterback, but he is a quarterback who slings it. Like, that's why they liked him over Carson Wentz, because Carson Wentz got risk averse at the worst times and reckless at the worst times. Whereas Heineke was like, screw it, we have good guys. I'm just going to throw it to the good guys and see if that gets us some wins. And it did get them a few wins. If he gets in, I think that saves Atlanta season. Honestly, yes, but you needed to get that guy beforehand.
Yeah. No, which
like, because why would Atlanta give him up now unless you're going to give him a round pick, which you do not have?
Nope.
So you're, again, it just it couldn't have happened to a better franchise.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm rooting for Atlanta to put Heineke in because there's too many guys I like on Atlanta for it to go down like this.
Yeah.
To be this obnoxious, like, bro, we're winning games sometimes.
It's literally the same exact situation as the Jets, where it is they have not the best team on the planet. They have a solid team that can easily go 500, except for the quarterback / leader of the team. If they make one or two moves, and one of those moves Atlanta could be is putting somebody down to QB2 and putting somebody else to QB1, who's to say? But it's like you're so close to being at least average and maybe squeaking out an extra win or two, and you're just not taking it.
Right. In terms of our random notes for the week, we talked about Jets drop.
Yeah.
T Swizzle. It really underlines how, like, bad it was going for the Bears. The Chiefs felt like they were entitled to go for vanity touchdowns. It's like, it's literally like oh my God, it's literally like, it was like the last game of a season for like a high school team where it's like, let's make sure the senior offensive lineman gets a carry in the red zone.
Yeah.
Come on, boys. But it's a professional football game where people are getting paid millions of dollars.
And week 3. Uh,
And it's week 3.
yeah, no, that was literally a standing of people like it's I think they've talked about her so much because if not, people were going to change the channel.
It truly,
Think
I
about it.
kind of low
They
key snapped.
like did I find the amount they were showing her obnoxious? Yes. Did I did I think that was like a nice like oh look at her sitting next to Mama Kelsey. Big Mama Kelsey fan. So it was just like, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
I'll like that's kind of nice. This is kind of wholesome. And they don't need to show her after like every play and hold up like give her her own title card, Taylor Swift 12 Grammys or whatever. And but it's like think about it. All at the same time, Travis and Patrick Mahomes get pulled because there's no point in keeping them in if they're gonna just keep if they're gonna break the Dolphins record. Honestly, at the rate they were
Right.
going,
They probably could have, too.
oh, they easily could have if they didn't pull their starter like some of their starters. They easily could have broken 70.
Henny threw 2 picks.
Yeah.
Um,
Not Henny. Gabbert.
or shoot, who do they have now? Gabbert. Right, right. I keep forgetting they
Blaine
got rid of him.
Gabbert. Um,
How the hell is that man still in this league?
no idea. But
It's been like it's been almost 20 years.
yeah.
I kind of low key snapped where at some point I think because I was like making dinner as that game was deteriorating and like my dad had the game on and I just go fuck talk about something else Jesus Christ
And it's
like
like
I just couldn't take it.
it's like I said to you, there was nothing else to talk about.
Right and like yeah at the same time I'm like I'm annoyed but I don't and you know the T Swift fans to their credit have lived up to. I literally saw a sincere tweet talking about star charts, and they're like, I figured out his mom's star chart. I haven't figured out his yet because I don't know when he was born. And I'm like, I swear to God, these
How
guys
do
are
you
going to
know
be the
when she
ones to
was
figure out
born,
how to
bruh?
break bikes. Which I'm like, one, yeah, how do you know that? Um, and also, like, they're going to be the ones to break up Mike McDaniel. I swear to God, they are going to figure out how to counter speed in this league. But it's just so funny. Like it's so funny. I don't know. It's parasocial relationships taken to a cartoonish extreme, and
It,
I don't know what to think of it. But it is kind of funny. Also,
it's
she's 5'11". She's very
I
tall.
know, which is surprising. I mean, it's not surprising she's 5'11" and very tall, very tall. But it's just like, huh? I would never guess like seeing her next to Travis Kelsey. But it's also like I saw something that was like Travis Kelsey is the tallest boyfriend she's had.
She's been dating these like she's been dating like Harry Styles. She's been dating all these like wispy Brits.
Yeah, all these like yeah small Brits pop stars, and now she's dating like a football player he's got the right amount of goober in him to be a
Right.
like a top tier tight end.
Also, PSA for Philadelphia fans. Like I was listening to Taylor Swift is over for us. She's not a Philadelphian. And as
Oh
someone
yeah,
pointed out, someone made the point of like, look, Santa Claus got hit with snowballs when my father was 2. Like when my grandpa was like a like kind of a young man.
yeah.
We still talk about that. Are you really going to do this to your grandkids? Are you really like if
Yes.
she comes around Philly sometime and people start booing, like are you prepared to have that follow you around
Here's
forever? And
here's
also,
here's the thing
okay,
about that. I
let
think
me hear your defense for this.
it's not. It's kind of a defense. It's not. It's like the weirdest part of the hardcore fan base too, where it's like die hard adjacent because that's like calling for this because like the real diehard fans and stuff they're listening to the Kelsey Brothers podcast
Mm-hmm.
and they're all like and the argument is like if she was doing this at like a Dallas Cowboys game she wouldn't be let into the eastern half of PA again for till the end of her life like if she was like dating like Micah Parsons for example.
Right.
But it's like it's Jason's baby brother. It's Travis. We like Travis here. Maybe
Right.
like she's hanging out with Mama Kelsey. like
Well,
in the
also,
box.
my thing is just like,
Maybe.
you naive Philadelphians. She's
Oh
doing
yeah,
the Lord's work. She is getting, someday his contract will expire, and he's been underpaid by the Chiefs for a while to keep the team together.
yeah,
When it comes time and Howie gets that checkbook out, he'll have an in already.
yeah.
And like Finn and Jake reuniting in the after, Jason and Travis Kelsey will dominate the football field and will win 3 Super Bowls.
Jason Kelsey could be retired for 2 to 5 years, and if Travis Kelsey makes it, like he goes, my girlfriend Taylor said I should play for the Eagles. I'm gonna go there real quick. That'll never happen. The Chiefs are gonna give him whatever he wants, but if he just goes, you know what, I'm gonna end the season. I'm gonna rock number 62 on the Eagles if somehow, and you would see like out of the mountain that like the snow covered mountain that Jason Kelsey is living in, just
Oh my god.
avalanche as he like rushes out like he's back to the Viking era, and he just goes, the fuck you aren't. And then he would look at Howie Roseman and just be like, I might be a little bit out of it. Give me give me
He's like
six
pulling
six
boats
but
on the
yeah,
ice.
$6, some gas money, and then maybe a cow or two. And Howie Roseman just goes, all right, and then Jason Kelsey would be like instantly starting in the back again.
It
And
is also just it's also just very funny that Taylor Swift fans were very mad that her alleged last boyfriend was kind of a racist,
yeah,
and her new boyfriend plays for the Kansas City Chiefs, who let's just generously say appropriate a lot of indigenous culture.
yeah. Also, one last note: the Swift Kelsey combination memes that have come out of it, especially from the Eagles side, where it's just like everyone's talking about this Swift Kelsey, but we're talking this Swift Kelsey, and they're doing like the Chris Brown meme and stuff like that with that. It's like the Eagles social media is on top of it.
Oh yeah.
Like
Um,
they saw their opportunity and they're taking it. And then one last thing before we get into next week, I kind of wanted to talk about is the NFC North a little bit. Just kind of
oh yes.
give a quick little, not I guess shout out is kind of shout out, but like a little just acknowledgement. If we got the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions with both 2-1, great showings across the board. Agree?
Oh yeah. Like I don't know. I'm a little down on the Lions because watching DeAndre Swift play so well for the Eagles, a part of me is like, why did you trade this guy?
Yeah,
Like sometimes I think teams overthink things, but at the same time they haven't gotten mowed over by the hype yet. And for some reason, like they've always been trying to make Bears Packers happen because it's like, oh, that's the oldest rivalry in sports, the NFL. It has to be this way. I'm way more excited for the next couple years
yeah,
of Lions Packers, and it's nice to see that like the actual play is paying off with that.
yeah. And then so it's like they have two very good, like two decently good teams, easily going to be over 500 at the rate they're going. And then they have two winless teams. And if you told me that at this point last year, they were going to have two and one teams and two 0-3 teams, I would be guessing that the 0-3 teams were going to be the Lions and the Bears, not the Vikings.
Huh. Did not expect that.
Yeah, like it's just one of those things. And even if you told me at the beginning of the season that Vikings Vikings are going to be 0-3, I would be like skeptical. I would like surely they have a win at this point. Like let's not be real here. And
Right,
I
right.
feel like that division just deserves a little bit of acknowledgement of like some like of what they're kind of up to, where it's just like you got the polar opposites. You have the teams that are refusing to change much, and it's clearly not working. And then you have the two teams that like they did a decent amount of reworking and had great like pretty good draft picks, and now they're doing great. So it's like if there is a case study for acknowledgement versus non-acknowledgement of flaws, this is it.
Right, right. Yeah, I honestly I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, and plus we will get to see that matchup. I believe
Tomorrow night,
will
or I
come
guess
to a
technically Sunday.
clash.
Um,
Oh
and
yeah.
and it's a great transition because Packers Lions is my game of the week. That's my don't
Oh
sleep on game
yes.
of the week.
That
Easily.
felt like the obvious choice for you.
Like I'm invested enough in both of their seasons this year that and they're both 2-1, same division, and they're both teams to not sleep on this year. Clearly.
Mhm.
So are they the best teams around? No. But I feel like the don't sleep on the game of the week isn't about like, oh, this is gonna be the best teams versus best teams. Like Bills Dolphins also play, but that's like a juggernaut like fighting match. That's
Right, right.
you're watching real steel with that. Lions
Real
Packers
steel.
is when you're taking bets on Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Where is it high quality? No. But are we gonna have a hella good time? Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. Who is your
Uh,
don't sleep on game?
uh, my sleep on game, I would say my team, but I don't want to jinx it, and I genuinely don't know how it's going to go. I'm going to say Rams Colts because assuming Anthony Richardson plays, because I think they're both two scrappy teams who have kind of surprised in a lot of big ways. The Rams, like McVay, seemingly opting for good vibes with my cool quarterback who I like and I'm friends with. Let's just sling the ball 60 times a game and just go for it. Let's just do our best. He's already thrown the ball 126 times in 3 games, which is a lot. Um, uh, you know, Puka Nakua is basically pitching himself as like he will be the Robert Woods to Cooper Cup's Cooper Cup. And I kind of like it as like sort of a thematic matchup, assuming Anthony Richardson comes back, of like the old guard versus the new guard. Matthew Stafford being kind of like the last of the great, like last of the sort of methodical pocket passers,
Yeah.
like sort of the last like gunslinger, and Anthony Richardson being sort of the apex of this new era of like physical freaks playing the position. I'm really interested to see. I would love to see those two just like have a conversation with each other.
Oh yeah. I think that's a very good game too. And
Mm-hmm.
which game are you not going to bother watching, and why is it Denver versus Chicago?
Well, no, they're Schadenfreude for
I
that.
was like you're not watching that game to enjoy football. Like if you're a Bears fan or a Broncos fan, you're gonna have the channel on something else. It's going to be
Right,
all the
right.
other NFL fans watching the thumb wrestling match that is those two.
Well, speaking of thumb wrestling match, my version of that is Patriots Cowboys because yeah, it's just like it'll be a make right game for the Cowboys. The Patriots this year are like their defense is good, but not particularly fun to watch for me.
Mm-hmm.
And like just watching that Patriots offense just like slug through the mud to get 15 points against the Jets. It's like
Yeah,
God, it's going to be the same thing against the Cowboys, and like the Cowboys will be struggling to get points because the Patriots defense is actually good. It's going to be a classic like 17-12 like slobber knocker,
yeah,
and it's just going to be miserable. Like it just feels like a game that's going to be kind of miserable to watch. Like I wouldn't even keep track of it if I didn't have Tony Pollard.
yeah. And then also dishonorable mention Vikings Panthers. If the Vikings lose this game, Justin Jefferson is going to be tweeting out, "Hey, I'm looking to go somewhere for Christmas and Thanksgiving. Any
Right.
ideas?" And that's when the game
I
gets
I
called.
have to imagine at least one. I have to imagine at least one team is going to have the stones to be like, "How much do you want? Name your price."
Yeah,
To the Vikings, um,
it's
and
like the reverse of like let's just put them down. Um, and let's just take a quick second to address this week's question of the week.
oh yes,
And it is, how big of a lead do you feel you can bench uh, that you can bench your star players. So we saw like two, a bunch of blowouts this last week,
Mm-hmm.
and not a lot of people benching their starters. So like let's just say start of fourth quarter, last 15 minutes. How much do you need to be up to put somebody on to be like, you know what, Mahomes, get out of here. Hit the showers, kid. You did good today.
If we're entering the fourth quarter with a 30-point lead, that's when I pull the plug. Like 30 for me, even 30 going halfway through the third quarter feels like a safe lead. Because at some point it's just the like math of it. The math of like how much time is it going to take the other team to score a single touchdown, and being able to feel confident of like you're just not literally unless you magically get 3 onside kicks, it's impossible to get one these days. You literally are just going to run out of time.
Yeah.
Like you're just not going to be able to pull it off. So like yeah, if we're getting into the even halfway, like I said, halfway through the third quarter, we kick a field goal to get anywhere between like 27 to 30 points. I'm like,
Yeah.
now we're just being silly. Like, come on now. Like 21, I would even consider, but at that, I'm like, well, there could be a freak interception,
Yeah.
and the worst thing that could be happen is you have to put your guys back in and ask them to like re-warm up.
Yeah, no. That's a little bit of a if you have to ask your starters to re-warm up and get back in, that's a problem. But I
Mm-hmm.
would say for me, like somewhere in the range of 28 to 35, depending on how like what the score is specifically. Like I know there's the huge deficit, but is it like a 50 to 35 situation, or is it like a 28 to 0 situation? Cuz that's two very different like spots.
Mm-hmm.
If if they have, I would say, above 21 points, it's going to be on the lower end of the or the higher end of the spectrum. But if they're under
Right.
21, it's going to be like, you know what? Head home, kid. You got a nice gal in the car. Take her somewhere nice for dinner.
Good lord.
I am full of analogies and euphemisms today.
Yeah, we're on a roll today.
Someone's got to write down someone comment like my Rock'em Sock'em Robots routine comparison, and oh, there was another good one I made earlier. Oh, the the Cardinals climbing out of the trash can.
Tweet, 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 tweet.
Alrighty, send us home, Carter. This was a long
All
one.
right. Thank you all for listening. We were very excited. We have another exciting week of football coming up, so I hope you all take some time to enjoy a little football. Hope you all get hope you all get your dribbles and shots in. It's your boy, the Rat King, living under Barclays Center. I had to move. And have a lovely evening.
See ya.